Hello everyone. In this video we are going to look at coding case 9.1 that is an audit report. So let's read our scenario. Our indications are patient has COPD. It says the study was an overnight oxygen desaturation study to fine-tune the patient's oxygen prescription. The study began at 22:36 hours and continued to about 6 o'clock the next morning. The study was intermittently observed. He had no apneic cells on intermittent observation. His O2 saturations remain above 90% on 2 liters. However, for 1/2 hour between 4:45 and 5:15 in the morning, the O2 saturation dropped down to as low as 82%. I suspect it requires 3 liters a minute nasal prongs to keep the patient's O2 saturation above 90%. He was admitted at this time with congestive heart failure, and I think we have to be a bit more precise in his oxygen therapy. So I would recommend 3 liters a minute while the patient sleeps. One of the following codes is reported incorrectly for this case, so indicate the incorrect code. So our Cpt code is O2 oximetry 94760 with modifier 26, and our diagnosis codes are COPD J44.9 and congestive heart failure I50.9. So let's first start by looking up our diagnosis codes. If you want to open up your diagnosis book to J44.9. Let me make this bigger. Okay. J44.9 is COPD unspecified, so that code is correct. And then our second code, if we go back to our scenario, our second code was I50.9 for the congestive heart failure. So let's go back to our book. Excuse me, I50.9. which is heart failure unspecified, congestive heart failure not otherwise specified. That's correct. So we know that code is correct. So let's go back and look at our CBT. It tells us an oxygen oximetry 94760. So go to your CBT manual and let's look. 94760 says non-invasive ear or pulse oximetry for oxygen saturation, single determination. And then if we look, we have multiple determinations, or the next one below that is by continuous overnight monitoring, which ours was overnight, right? They kept the patient overnight. So we do not want 94760, we want 94762. We would still use modifier 26 because that's the professional component, so that's what we need to indicate. So our correct code is 94762 with a modifier 26. Now I want you guys to go to your Find a Code. So go ahead and log into Find a Code, and I'm going to show you how to find the codes using this encoder as well. So Find a Code. You should see right up here, My Codes. So we can pick diagnoses, procedures, drugs, vaccines, notes. So we're going to go to the diagnoses first and then ICD-10-CM. So if you know the code, you can type it in here. Or if we scroll down, you can see that there's code sets, coding information, coding tools. So we're going to start by just typing, let's type our J44.9. Then we hit search, and it brings up our code. Or if you want to go back, if we go back to codes, to ICD-10, and to the index. So now we're at the index, and you type your main term just like if you're looking it up. So failure, and then you can see it brings down this drop down menu. And ours is failure heart, right? So right there's our code, I50.9. And it gives us the ICD-9 code if you're interested, but that has not been used since 2015, right? It gives us our excludes note, so everything that you see in the tabular. And if you want to add it to your list, that's where you would do that. So we now will go back up to codes, and let's find our CPT. So then we're going to pick the CPT procedures. So we can go to the CPT index, or if we want to just go to the browse a code, we can go right to CPT. And it tells us that CPT is not part of this subscription. So we are not able to check our CPT code using Find a Code. The other function I wanted to show you in Find a Code is if we come to Tools and then to Scrubbing, there is a Coda Note, which is a version of a computerized assisted coding program. So what I want you to do is take that case study that we're working on and copy and paste it. So we're going to come back over here and just highlight in your book and do Control-C to copy, and then come back to your Find a Code. And we are going to do Control-V to paste it in there. And then if you hit Scan, it brings up codes based on this documentation. Now, does that mean that the computer assigns all the codes correctly? No, which is why coders will always audit a computer-assisted coding program. But I did just want to highlight this. So we know our correct codes. Our J44.9, which you can see that encoder did not even pick up with the computer-assisted coding, but it did pick up our I50.9 for heart failure. These other procedures or diagnosis codes, are not applicable. Disorders of the globe was not something mentioned. Our patient is not a baby or a newborn perinatal period, so that does not apply, and our patient was not dependent on oxygen, so that does not apply. And then if we click on CPT, it does give us CPT codes and it gives us some to pick from. So we know that 94762 is the correct code, so we can click on that for chosen. If we go back to the ICD-10-CM, we can click on that one for chosen, and then we can also add our one for the COPD. But that's a good way to also audit charts if you would like. You can use this Coda Note, and that way the CPT does come up in Find a Code.